Hi folks, so what are we talking about today? So today we're talking about this, the BMW R1250GS, and more specifically, it's a 500 mile review of the bike. So it went in for its 500 mile service about 3 or 4 days ago, and basically it's an oil and filter change. So a little bit of background. So I went into my local dealer here where I live, which is the Mansell collection, back in April, gave them £1,000 deposit, filled in all the spec sheet. That spec sheet got whisked away to the factory in Berlin, and then the bike was built in week 19, which was sometime in May, middle of May, and then it was shipped from the UK, having had its PDI in the UK, and then it went down to the dealer and I paid all the money, well, a little bit of money, a little bit of finance, and then I rode away a happy bunny on the 13th of June. Woohoo! So today is July the 24th, so I thought, yeah, why not just do a quick 500 mile review of the BMW. So if you don't know, there is actually a new colour scheme. So I mean, I went for the triple black. I was umming and ahhing between the triple black or the rally version, but there's now another colour option being thrown into the mix. Certainly I had a look on the BMW Motorrad site today, the UK site, and there's a new colour. I have to read it. It's called GS Trophy, and here's a picture of it now, so you've got another choice to make. So that was my hardest choice, was what colour do I go for, but I am pleased that I went for the triple black with the blingy gold wheels and lots of 719 options are on the bike. So I thought I'd do a likes and dislikes video. So if you're sat on the fence not knowing, oh, should I go for a GS or should I go for the Ducati V4S, should I go for the KTM 1290 Super Adventure, hopefully watching this video may make your mind up, or not. It's always quite a hard decision to do, isn't it? So yeah, so that's what I thought I'd do, put together a little video, 500 mile review, and showing the likes and dislikes. So off the bat then, I haven't ridden the Ducati V4S and I haven't ridden the KTM Super Adventure. So yeah, I can only give you my views on this, the GS. So basically this has got 136 horsepower. I just have to read a little few notes. It's got 143 newton meters of torque, and if you sort of put in all the official fuel figures, this gives you a range of 263 miles. The Ducati gives you a range of about 211 miles. So in the press that has been highlighted, the lack of fuel range of that bike. And the KTM, well, that's pretty much similar to the BMW. That's got a range of around about 252 miles. Clearly the BMW has the least horsepower. The Ducati's got 170 HP and the KTM has got 160, but the BMW has got the most amount of torque out of the three bikes, and all three bikes are within 10 kilograms of one another, but the BMW is the heavier of the three. But I'm only 13 stone wet, and yeah, I mean that 10 kilos could be lost just like that, couldn't it, depending on how heavy you are. So why did I choose the BMW? I hadn't ridden the V4 or the KTM. Basically the dealership over here, a separate dealership, didn't have those bikes to demo, so I wasn't going to blow a lot of money and get a bike that I hadn't ridden. So the Mansell collection, they had the demo bike, rode it, brilliant, bought it, put the deposit down, and had the bike several months later. So yeah, we'll talk about did I make the right decision as we go through the video. So let's look at the dislikes then, shall we? Yeah, good old dislikes. What are they? First one then is the OEM tyres. When it came out of the factory, it was shod with Michelin Anarchy Adventures. Noisy tyre, very good on the road, but noisy as hell. Above 35 miles an hour, flick a switch, the noise, grinding noise comes up the fork tunnel, and it just irritates you, and it just spoils the ride actually. So they've been binned now at the 500 mile service. It's now wearing Michelin Road 6s, which are absolutely quiet as night and day. You still get a little bit of noise, but that's predominantly from the clutch at the front of the engine coming up the fork tunnel, but it doesn't irritate me. It's fine. The road grinding noise has gone, so ditch those tyres unless you want to live with the grinding noise. But inner city riding, yeah, get rid of them. When I went to the dealer and sat there and went down the specification list. What do I want the bike to come down with from the factory? I ticked the multi-function indicators. Basically, if you don't know, if you're sat there about to order BMW, have a think about this one, folks. The multi-function indicators, it's a 3-in-1 unit. Basically, not only are they turn indicators, they operate the rear red light, and then also they operate a brake light as well. So the problem is when you're indicating and you're stationary on the highway or the carriageway and you want to exit the carriageway, potentially the brake light will be brighter than the indicator light and mask it, and there's a chance of being rear-ended. I was out with my nephew who's got a Yamaha MT-07, and when we came back from the ride, he did say that when we were on the carriageway waiting to turn off the carriageway, he said, yeah, the indicator was quite hard to see, and I hadn't primed him about that. So that was our first ride together, and that was the first thing he said when we got back. So I am hoping that BMW will possibly come up with a software fix where they can just deactivate the brake light part of the indicator. So you still have the indicator and the red rear light, shall we call it. So that was £110, which I needn't have spent. So think very carefully about ticking that option in the options box. The quick shifter then, so below 5,000 revs, don't bother using it. It's a bit clunky, both up the box and down the box. Sometimes going down the box, the gear lever doesn't actually want to move. So what you have to do is just blip the throttle without pulling the clutch in, just blip the throttle, and that will take the load off the engine, and then you can go down to the next gear. But it's not doing what it should do properly. It's not acting like a quick shifter below 5,000 revs. Certainly that's what I thought. So I would say don't bother using it until you go above 5,000 revs. And if you want to use it on the way down, then just flip the throttle and it will slot in quite nicely. So that covers that. Fueling wise, fueling is very good, but sometimes when you're going quite quick into or approaching a corner, you de-throttle, and sometimes it's almost like it's got the feeling of a little bit more fuel is just being pushed into the injectors. So in effect you have a little bit of an overrun. So you don't kind of speed up, but yeah, you get a bit of an overrun. So I just wish maybe on like the carburetted bike back in the good old days, when you shut the throttle, it totally shut the fuel off. But it just feels sometimes that there's a little bit of fuel going in, so just causing the bike to continue with a bit more power when you actually want no power at all. So, well, that's what I've found anyway. Gearbox can be a little bit clunky, but it's a huge boxer engine, so what do you expect? Yeah, it can be a little bit clunky, but it can be very smooth as well. If you're riding hard, I mean, I ride it basically in dynamic mode. If you're riding it hard, I'm a sports bike rider, basically that's my history, and I've got my KTM 890R behind this one. If you're riding it hard, you can notice a little bit of flex and movement, but it's a big adventure bike, so what do you expect? But yeah, I'm just highlighting it just so that you know that is, well, one of the dislikes. It's just something I've noticed with the bike. Horn is crap, that's been binned, and I've put a mini sound bomb on there, but you can go for the full fat version and put the big boys sound bomb on there, which I might do later on, but I just brought the mini sound bomb over from my Honda Africa trim before I sold it. Storage on the rear seat, yeah, it's not particularly brilliant. I've got the Hex Easy Can under there and the Innov DVR recorder for the dash cams front and rear. So I think you might be able to get a very lightweight pair of waterproofs in there, and that would be about it. So for a big bike, not much storage. Front and rear mudguards, they've got a tendency, certainly the front, to throw up all the muck onto the front of the engine. And I've got the blingy bling 719 front engine case, and yeah, I don't want to get that damaged. What kind of rider am I? And the rear mudguard doesn't come down enough. Everybody says that, and they all put aftermarket mudguards on them. So I've gone for the expensive mudsling mudsling rear mudguard on there, and that should cut out all the rubbish being thrown up. Predominantly, it's sort of, if you're a pillion, you're going to get your legs soaked, and also the back of your legs as a rider as well. So that should hopefully sort that problem out. So I don't know why BMW didn't put a decent rear mudguard on there. Maybe if you're going off-road, a lot of mud, they just want the mud to be able to, be wiped out of the way and not jam anything up. That's the only thing I can think of. So the front, yeah, I've put a front mudguard extender on there from, dare I say it, Nippy Normans, who've taken a lot of my money over the last couple of months. Exhaust note, it's obviously a legal exhaust. It's a little bit quiet, if I'm honest. Yeah, so I am looking at maybe putting an aftermarket end can on there. It's just a little bit quiet, a little bit tame, but we'll see. I'm taking away in a few days time just for a day trip to France, so maybe I might change my mind. But it's a super quiet exhaust, but it does sort of pop a little bit when you're changing gear with the quick shift, etc. So yeah, that covers the exhaust. And the last thing on my list would be the nav cradle mounting. So yeah, so I ticked the option for the nav preparation kit. Basically the only reason I did that because I wanted the navigation mounting bar. I don't think you can buy that separately. If you can buy that separately, just order the bar. You'll save yourself a few quid there. But I didn't go for the nav 6, the BMW nav 6, because that costs about 700 quid. They want £700 for a Garmin unit, which is not as good as the Zumo, which costs 350 quid. So on my Africa tour I had the Zumo XT, and I've also mounted the power cradle for the Garmin Zumo on my KTM. So I've now wired the Zumo into my BMW with the Zumo cradle. So I've whipped the prep stuff off the bike and just left the bar on there, so I can just bounce the Zumo between the two bikes. So yeah, so I saved myself a little bit of money there. So unless you can get a nav 6 at a discount, I wouldn't even bother with that. So I think that is all the dislikes, but the biggest one there is the road noise from the tyres, which are those Anarchy Adventures. So I would say get rid of those. Other than that, there's not much to dislike really. So let's talk about the likes, shall we? Oh, and before we talk about the likes, I just turned over the page and noticed that bizarrely the tyre pressure monitoring system, unless I'm wrong, please make a comment in the comment section down below. Depending on what tyres you're wearing, the dealership have to set the tyre pressure limit for you. So if they're running at 30, 38, then they have to set that for you. So yeah, it's just a shame you can't go into the settings menu and then adjust the tyre pressure settings yourself. Maybe that's what all manufacturers do, so it's set at the dealership. I don't know, make the comments down below so I know, other people know. So yeah, I just thought that was a bit peculiar, but I don't know why is the answer to that. So anyway, let's go to the likes now, shall we? Well, let's talk about the like, shall we? And there are many things to like about the GS. But first of all, I just need to get some fuel because I haven't got too much left. So just going to pop in the station. So one of the first things that I like is the actual keyless ride. So I wasn't sure if I was going to be a bit of a fan of that one, but it turns out I am. So always make sure the key's in your pocket when you leave home. Otherwise it's a bit embarrassing when you switch the bike off and you can't start the bike and you haven't got the spare backup key. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the keyless ride. There have been some issues with some of the fuel filler caps not opening properly. Can't say I've had that issue, but what you can do is if you've got your Torx T25, then you can just do these two little Torx screws here, and then that will allow you to open the fuel cap. So one of my first likes is the keyless ride. So pretty straightforward. Switch the bike off and I think it gives you 20 or 30 seconds to open the fuel cap. Just lift it up a little bit, it will actually make a bit of a noise, and then there we go, job done. Compound 84 litre, so 20 litres folks, that's what it takes. That'll do me. Lift that up, push it down, and there we go. So keyless ride, you've got to love it. So that's one of my first big likes. Do like that. So we've now got fuel in the tank then, so let's take this big old girl out on the road. So everything's nice and warm, the engine's warm, the tyres are warm. So let's crack on about the things that we love and like about the GS. Hopefully it's not too windy.
So what do I like about the GS? Well, let's start off, it's a GS. Sounds a little bit corny, but these things are just absolutely bloody amazing. The size of the bike, as soon as you get on it and ride it, it all just disappears. That's what everybody says about it. As soon as you move forward, that big sort of 245 kilo weight just disappears, and you can really throw it around. It's just truly incredible. But I haven't ridden the Ducati or the KTM. I've ridden the Triumph. I think that would be quicker on the road, but overall, nah, it's the GS for me. So that would be one of my likes, the fact that's the GS. I know it's corny, but hey, there we go. So let's start from the front of the bike and then work backwards. We've already spoken about the tyres. I've got the Michelin roads on here, and I absolutely love those. Absolutely no road noise coming up through here. So the brakes, I was a little bit disappointed, if I'm being honest, that when it came down from the factory it was sporting the Hayes front calipers, and obviously had the Brembo one on the back. I was hoping, like the GSA, it would have had the Brembo brakes on it, but the Hayes brakes are absolutely phenomenal. I kid you not, folks, these are an amazing set of brakes. They had issues to start with some leaking, but that's all been sorted now. And if you didn't know, Hayes is like the parent company, umbrella company of Brembo, so that's the tie-in between Brembo and Hayes. Mirrors are really good, they don't vibe at all. These are the 719 mirrors. Yeah, really good. I'm more than happy with those. I've gone for the rally screen at the front. I haven't gone up to motorway speed on it, so I don't know how good it is, but I think it really looks quite smart actually. The screen is very easy to adjust, just with one hand. Something less to go wrong if an electric motor fails. That's my excuse anyway. So that's really easy to use. Cruise control, very simple. Just switch it on and then you push the button forward, and then here on the dash you can see the cruise control on, and I've set 39 miles an hour, and just move the switch back and that will have your new set speed. Disengage, just pull the brake and it disengages. And there are other ways to disengage it, so I'm just going to switch the cruise control off now. There we go, so all back to normal. So I went for the heated seat option on this bike, both for myself and the pillion, aka my wife, and they work really well, very easy to use. The heated handlebar grips, absolutely awesome. Yeah, very good, and again all very simple to use with the controls up here. Actually really good, no issues with that whatsoever. The engine, well, the engine is just stonking. You know, I can put it in, let's say 6th gear, 2000 revs, twist the throttle, look at that folks, and it's gone. There might be a new BMW GS on the horizon, maybe with, I don't know, a few more horsepower, but if they could give it 20 more horsepower, this would be almost a scary machine. So at the moment, with 136 horsepower, it's good enough for me, and it's yeah, it tickles my dangly bits, more than enough, shall we say. And I've, you know, had a lot of fast bikes in my time, so yeah, there's certainly more than enough power to dispatch anything without worrying about it. You know, my Honda Africa Twin, I'd have to plan my overtakes. So yeah, the engine is just very good. It just works, it really does, it just works, and it's just a fabulous engine. Suspension wise then, so this has got the, let's call it the semi-active suspension. If you don't know what that is, basically the boffins at BMW have worked their magic, their clipboards, and gone into their little rooms and come up with all kinds of calculations and sorted out the suspension for you. So all you have to do is just select what sort of mode you want to ride the bike in. You've got rain mode, road mode, and dynamic mode, so, and enduro obviously. So they're the 4 modes. Then you've got the pro mode, which that doesn't mean professional, that just means programmable, so you can go into that mode and then play around with them, turn things off if that's your thing that you want to do. But no, I just tend to ride around in dynamic mode and adjust the throttle accordingly. Not that I've had any experience in the rain in the 5 weeks of ownership, I hasten to add. So yeah, I'm pretty impressed with the way that the boffins in Germany have sorted out the riding modes. So basically, when you select a mode using the mode button here, and you'll see it come up on the dash. Then it sends all the information to the front suspension, rear suspension, and then it will adjust the rebound and the compression damping based on the equations and things that the boffins have come up with, so you don't have to worry about that. So that's why you've got no damping adjustment on the front, because that's all done electronically through the mode selection button. On the rear then you can actually adjust, let me just change the button here, so you can actually adjust the, let's call it the ride height. So most people tend to leave it in auto, so the bike's just doing its own thing. So if your partner gets on the back, then it will adjust the ride height accordingly. I really quite like that idea, but you can actually adjust it. So if you're stationary, that's the only time you can adjust it. If you're stationary and your partner wants to get on and they're a little bit on the short side, you can just press the button and then the suspension will drop, and then that will be in the low mode, and then you can go back to auto or high before you ride off. But you have to have the bike stationary before you can adjust the one on the right hand side, which is the ride height. The one on the left there, just press that. The one on the left is what kind of suspension you want. Do you want dynamic suspension or road suspension? So you can actually have dynamic everything, so that includes the throttle and the suspension, or you can say, well, I quite like the dynamic throttle, shall we say. I quite like the dynamic throttle bit to it, but I would really like the suspension to be in road suspension. So I don't know if people know that, but you can just go to the suspension button, press that in, and then press it down, and it will go to road mode. So everything's going to soften off, the front's going to soften off, the rear's going to soften off, but throttle wise, etc., so everything but the suspension is still in dynamic mode. So the suspension has softened off. So the suspension is softened off and suspension is in road mode. So when you turn it off, I think it will retain the last known settings, but if I remember when we stop the bike, I'll just have a look at that. So let's just go to the suspension button again, press that in. I'm going to go from road back to dynamic, which is what it was before. KTM 890. Hope it's not my bike they've nicked from the garage. So everything's firming up now, so the suspension has gone back to dynamic suspension. Let's not forget the TFT. That TFT is by far the best TFT I've come across. I've got a Speedo Angel screen protector on there. It gives it a slight purple tint, but that just protects the screen. But the screen itself is absolutely bloody brilliant. It's by far the best screen I've come across. It's very good. You've got sort of several areas of information. You've got the top bar of information there, and using the mode button, the menu button here, sorry, you can select what you want to show on that bar in the settings, maybe another video. But at the moment I've just got the total mileage on there. You see 557. By pressing the button I've selected the tyre pressure monitoring device, and then remaining mileage, so I've got 184 miles to run before I have to push the bike, and then that's just a symbolisation for the fuel tank. So I can't remember how many things there are you can have on there, but you can just set it for what you want. So that's how I do it. So I've got about 4 or 5 settings on there, and you just press a button to scroll through them. In relation to the switch gear, I find the switch gear is really good. I had the Africa Twin before, and I looked at the new Africa Twin, but I just hated all the buttons on here. And because I'm a rider of the bike just for pleasure, I would more than likely forget what buttons to press. I really would. You know, it's going to sound stupid, but yeah, I really would. So that was a no from me. And even the Triumph, I didn't like the layout of the buttons, the joystick here, but I think BMW have really hit the nail on the head with just the way that it's laid out. Very functional, very simple, and the whizzy wheel here is very easy to use. Trying to do things whilst I'm riding. Let's go to the settings. Let's go to settings. So if you've dived really deep in something and you just want to go back to the home screen, it's very simple. Just a menu button there at the top. Just hold it down, long press, takes you back to the menu. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. So some nice twisties coming up now. I think I'm just going to have a little bit of a play. The bike just handles so well, it really is a pleasure to ride, very comfortable. One thing I will say though is when you get on the bike, just adjust all the controls to suit yourself. I found the handlebars here were just a little bit too high for me, so I was tending to oversteer, so I've just dropped them back a few degrees. They set them at the factory, there's a little mark behind here, they set them at 0 degrees and then you've got between 0 and 10 to adjust them, so I've just set them about 5 degrees, and I just found I now have, it might sound a bit daft, but I now have sort of neutral steering really, and there's no tendency to oversteer. Man, the bike is just so damn good, it really is, you know. And the other thing with the suspension is you get very little dive on the front end due to the telelever suspension. You will get a little bit of dive, there is not no dive at all, you know. The front does dip a little bit, but nowhere near as much as normal twin fork suspension bikes do, if that makes sense. So that's really good. It's just a great machine, it really is. And of course the main thing is you don't get any oil on your back wheel because it's a shaft drive bike, and that's just lovely. And that's just lovely. That's one of the main reasons I went for the BMW, is the fact that it's a shaft drive and I didn't have to worry about cleaning oil off everything and chain maintenance and everything. Obviously there is some degree of maintenance with the shaft. There have been issues with some rusting in the shafts, but this bike, I'm not sure what build week of this year they started doing it, but they've started to put a rubber, let's call it a drainage valve on the underside of the shaft drive casing, the swinging arm. So if you want to go down into your garage, have a look on the underside of your swinging arm, you might see a rubber beak, which is the drain valve. So that's new for this year, just to get rid of condensation water, if you get any water in there, to stop any potential issues with the joints rusting up. So would I recommend this bike after the 500 miles I've had it for, just over 5 weeks? Haha, an absolute, yeah, it's an absolute yes, I would recommend it. Now with these Road 6 tyres on, it just handles so well, in fact, that my KTM hasn't even seen the daylight. It's just remained in the garage for the last 5 weeks since I've had this bike. So that's it guys, that's the end of the review, 500 mile review. I really like the bike. If you're sat on the fence, should I get one or not, just go down to your local dealer, take one out for a ride. There's a lot of GS haters out there, and all I'd say to you GS haters is go and try one. I mean, I'm pretty much a sports bike kind of guy. Some people say it's a little bit boring, but trust me, I found it anything but boring. If you want to ride it really quickly, you can get into a lot of trouble very quickly. So it's an absolutely amazing machine. Who knows what's around the corner, if they're going to bring out a new one out this year. Obviously they've got the new colour scheme for the GS Trophy, which is now out as per the Motorrad UK website, but with another 20 horsepower maybe for next year. Be an absolutely amazing bike. But for now, the 136 horsepower, it brings a smile to my face. I'm a happy bunny, and looking forward to my trip to the French Alps next month, so there'll be a video on that. But in the meantime, I'm enjoying my GS 1250. I love it, brilliant bike. Go and buy one, go and test ride one. Don't hate them. People hate them and they haven't tried them. Go out there, go and test ride one. They're really good. They really are that good. Go and try one, you'll love it. Anyway, ta-ta for now, ride safe. Hope you enjoyed the video. Make any comments down below if I've made a total hash of anything. But I really like this bike. End off. Very noisy exhaust. Cheerio, take care. Bye.